move everything out of the way. I'm surrounded with materials, and my tripod wants to move all of a sudden, so it'll probably do that when we least expect it. Which Saturn hates, right? Saturn hates things that are least expected. So that's kind of a good segue into this talk today. We have the conjunction of Venus and Saturn just in the air in the general transits. So I was thinking a lot about that yesterday and today, what that conjunction means, and just the relationship in general between Venus and Saturn. I do a lot of pondering about planetary relationships. And it's such an interesting relationship between these two, Venus and Saturn, because they have both a trine and a square relationship with each other. Because Venus rules Taurus, is naturally in a trine relationship to Capricorn. Saturn rules Capricorn, the earth energies. There's this essential compatibility between their action, the motivations aren't conflictual. But we have this conflicting energy between Venus and Saturn when we see Libra and Saturn in that conflicting aspectual relationship, a square, because Libra is naturally square to Capricorn. And so we have this, sorry, I just cut my bangs again. And this is a chronic problem with me, getting frustrated and then whacking at my own hair and then being upset about it. We have this adversarial, conflictual relationship between Venus and Saturn in these two signs here. And it shows us the progression of relationship. Because in Taurus and the second house, this represents this period of life, this stage in human development, because all of the signs represent a stage of human development from birth to death. We have infancy and birth and Aries in the first house, and we come to the second house and we have the development of self-esteem. This is the primary ground here, Taurus, for the development of self-esteem, because this is the stage in life where we are starting to develop the concept of object permanence and self and other. And this is really based on our relationship with our parents, how we're regarded, how we're treated, what's reflected to us in our parents' faces and in their way of being. It tells us what we must be. We're looking at those reactions to us. And then that tells us what we must be. Because the parent, what is the quote? The mother's face is the precursor to the mirror. Or no, it's the other way. The mirror. The precursor to the mirror is the mother's face. Because it's true. And so what's going on around us, the quality and type of attention, the type of love, the type of physical care, this is all Taurus stuff, the development of our self-esteem, concept of self, object permanence as a result of how we were being regarded, treated, and taken care of. So we have the establishment of that, and that is the early reasoning, the early establishment of our preferences as well in Taurus, in that stage of human development. And then we come to the stage of human development that Venus represents in Libra, which is very early adulthood. This is when we are, early mid adulthood, where we are developing partnerships, relationships. We are seeking other. And what is a lot of that based on? What happened in Taurus in that foundational area of life where we were building our self-esteem, regard, preferences, and that translates to who we are looking for, who we want to partner with in the seventh house. So the old adage in psychology that we all want to have sex with our parents is, well, maybe something to that when we look at the progression of what is it that creates that attraction, repulsion, feeling of wanting to have something that completes us, the really foundations of the shadow self, what we look for in others. And so Venus and Saturn have this very interesting relationship here when it comes to self-esteem and partnership, having everything to do with our capacity for commitment and our ability to maintain stability and to allow in what we fully deserve and prefer. That's the themes that are always there between Venus-Saturn aspects, depending on what the angle is. That's going to show the particularity of the problem, the particular belief, because we have two capacities here. Capacity for love and relationship, self-esteem, money as well, our social and romantic and physical preferences, so Venus stuff, and commitment, stability, and the boundary that we place on something. The capacity is always described by the angle. The belief is described by the aspectual relationship, the angle. The description of conflict or ease. So when we have this problem, described with any hard aspect, it's showing how that capacity is limited or fully available. What is the capacity for love and commitment and for feeling satisfied and fulfilled in relationship? So when we're looking at the hard aspects, there's always some limitation in our capacity for participating in relationships where we are fully allowing ourselves to feel and experience love and equal give and take. Our self-esteem has everything to do. How we feel about ourselves, what we think about ourselves, the value that we give to ourselves has everything to do with that capacity for allowing in what we want, Venus, but we're unsure of, and we, on some level, don't feel that we totally deserve. So, what we want and our idea of do we deserve it and can we hang on to it, and our idea of loss, devotion, commitment, we have a diminished capacity to experience those things without problems. That does not mean our capacities cannot be enlarged, because that's what our heart aspects are leading to. It's leading us to recognize that, hey, I have a problem. I have a issue with proper give and take, with allowing myself to feel love and be involved in relationships that are stable, there's equal give and take, and I don't have to sacrifice my own preferences or my own needs. What feels good to me, the things that I find enriching in my life, I don't have to sacrifice that in a way that is self abandoning or self denying or denies another. So we're working through these conflicts within ourselves until we can enlarge and develop the capacity to allow in and to participate freely and with trust in relationships that are fulfilling, joyful, romantic, available. We have equal give and take. So our heart aspects are never a denial of something. They are a point of contention or conflict within ourselves, and that's meant to bring our attention to it. Because we don't bring our attention to what's working. We just go with that. That's what's flowing already. That's why I don't spend a lot of time talking about easy aspects. Someday I'll get to that after I've addressed the stuff that people actually look up. We don't go to the therapist to talk about everything that's going right in our life. We don't go to groups or events or workshops or something if we are not looking to experience some kind of transformation or something added, some added value to our life. So, I mean, typically we're not going to spend money to go and sit and talk to somebody about everything that's going right. We pay for and we invest in typically what's going to bring us answers or some kind of transformation or some kind of healing or some kind of it's going to help us in some way. So with these difficult aspects, the more we get to know ourselves and the more that we truly discover what we want. Because Venus is what we want, it's our preferences. The more we discover that, we uncover that, we connect with that. That's really the more that we can pursue something, we can build something, we can allow for something that's in tune with what Venus means to us, what it is that we value, what it is that we want to spend our money, our time, and our attention on. So there's a type of self-denial that's present with these hard aspects. A hedging out to some degree of a complete, deep experience of joy or love. And we have different ways of hedging that out or keeping ourselves safe, depending on what the aspect is. Some aspects, some hard aspects, are easier to recognize because they bring more overt external conflict into our life. They show up as more hardcore, blinking red lights on the dashboard of our life. And it's usually our hardest aspects that are creating the most imbalance and the most problems that we bring our focus to most. And as we get older, we can address these various conflicts. We may get a hold of something in our 20s, and there may be some other thing that we're ready to deal with or balance or clear in our 30s. In our 40s, perhaps we are now ready to deal with this thing that we didn't have the ability or the willingness to deal with before. So it can take a lot of time and experience for us to solve these difficult aspects between Venus and Saturn. And we can come across as unavailable, uninvolved, colder, more unreachable. What's actually going on with hard aspects to Saturn is that the sensitivity is increased. And because we are more sensitive to rejection, judgment, loss, and Saturn stuff, we are more careful. Not because we are not desirous of giving or receiving love, but because we fear that we cannot deal with the loss, with the rejection, with with the instability. And so we can hold back, or we can choose people that themselves are emotionally or physically unavailable, people that in themselves are compromised, because there's a safety in that. If we're not completely available, if we're not completely capable, then that can be reflected in the choices that we make. It can feel safer to enter into transactional relationships. Relationships where the contract or the physical contribution, the title, what we get out of it in terms of a material or physical relationship, that can be what we choose to invest in or value. And because that feels safer. There's more of a let's shake hands on it, but we can leave out the vulnerability, the feelings, that true emotional connection. We can leave out the love. We have different ways of doing that with the different aspects. So we want dearly to have that heart-to-heart connection. But we don't believe we can do it on some level. And we don't believe others can do it either. And so Saturn is that skepticism with these hard aspects. It's that heart wall. But why is that wall there? Because what's inside of it is so tender. It has not, our feelings, our heart, our capacity for love, the vulnerability and the strength that it takes to enter into relationships that do have equal give and take. We have to strengthen the emotional muscles, or develop the emotional availability, the emotional intelligence through practice, through making increasingly more fulfilling choices as we gain more experience and knowledge about what we want, where we're really honest with ourselves about the quality and type of love and support, commitment that we really want. And we don't sell ourselves short. Because the essential problem with Venus Saturn aspects are that we sell ourselves short. At the time, it seems like that's the best option. to get to get any kind of commitment or kind of love that we want to fulfill this one need. But then as time goes by, we realize that it doesn't, or we don't allow for a total envelopment and fulfillment. So there's a starvation that occurs here, and it has a cumulative effect. It is settling. You have a good point, Elle. It is settling. It's selling ourselves short. We want to do better, but on some level, in some way, we don't believe that we deserve that, or that's available or possible, or within the scope of our ability to manage it. And we can experience great unhappiness and increasing starvation, distance, desperation as time goes on, and we're in connections that aren't of our total choosing, of our own free will. So it's a way that we are holding back or denying. And it's is it fair to ourselves? Is it fair to others? And so the foot that we keep out, because we're not all in with these hard aspects. Any hard aspects, especially to Venus or Moon, are going to show some kind of conflict, inner conflict, that will result in some kind of outer experience. And it keeps us from being all in on all levels when it comes to whatever we're doing. And it is a way for us to keep our stories that our ego, unexamined ego, is very much built on. So we have to realize that, oh my God, my worth, my capacity for love, what I have to give and receive, what I can receive, what I should be receiving, that's much bigger and greater and more beautiful than I knew. I can do better. I can be better. And the acceptance of love, the acceptance of devotion, the acceptance of what's good for us. It leads to satisfaction. We want satisfaction so much, but in some way we're choosing or doing something that's denying that satisfaction. All right, so that's what I have to say. Let me take a few questions here. Um, oh, there's a lot. Oh, hey, Ariana. Hey, Andrea. Okay, so yes, I agree with a lot of these comments. Can I please interpret Venus in conjunct to Saturn? KM, that is one of the most difficult relationships to have these two, between these two. The in conjunction is always something that shows a massive imbalance and a paradox when it comes to the give and take, you know, between any planetary relationship. And it's something that results in a massive overgiving or an overextension initially. Because the belief with an in conjunction is if I sacrifice myself, if I give, if I bend, I will get that reciprocal action back. Because, of course, someone is going to see how good I am and what I've done and how I've put myself out there. And of course, because that's how I am, that's what I will get back. It will return that to me. It that is it is a coping mechanism. It's actually a very deeply manipulative way. Any in conjunction, it's a deeply deeply manipulative way of getting our needs met through improper self-sacrifice. And with the in conjunction between Venus and Saturn, we give, we wait, we commit to something that's usually too busy, already committed, uh, out of our league, not available. It's lacking, or that person, that thing, that situation is lacking, obviously lacking the willingness or capacity to respond to us or to commit to us or give us what we want or return our affections. And so our solution is to keep giving, to keep inviting, to keep investing, because it will be returned if we just keep sacrificing and moving towards it and leaving that door open. And because of a lack of the boundary, we are massively taken advantage of with the in conjunction. Massively. Because we can have that unconditional love that in conjunctions describe. They actually describe Pisces in the 12th house and Neptune in conjunction. It's very much, you know, descriptive of that sacrificial energy. And unconditional love and self-sacrifice is absolutely appropriate. Absolutely across the board. But it's not something that has to be unconditional love. Doesn't mean that we don't have a boundary, an expectation, or a standard. We don't understand that we can have acceptance and unconditional love and allowance and have all that space and still have somebody meet our needs and still have somebody commit to us in a way that is appropriate. and still have something that's reciprocal and available and grounded. So we are inviting ourselves to be taken advantage of with that in conjunction, because we think that it's going to prove how well we love and how much we love and how devoted and committed we are. And then somebody is going to give us what we want. But it invites massive disrespect. And we have our time and our resources wasted. And the other person becomes weakened. What we are interpreting as unconditional love can massively, not just weaken us, but weaken the other person, because we are offering them all the benefits of what they should be earning by engaging in a reciprocal relationship. We're giving up all the milk and feeling like if I do give you all the benefits, all the milk, all the rewards, and I don't ask for anything in return because it's unconditional. We're going to ride off into the sunset together. The other person's just like, thank you very much for your approval and your patience and your waiting and your unconditionality and your milk and your rewards, and I completely accept it, and I'm just so grateful for it. And now I'm going to take everything that I've been given and I'm going to apply it to this thing over here. And we realize that all of our everything has been taken for granted. But see, we believe within conjunctions that if we allow that taken for granted to happen, it will bring the other person realizing how special we are. Look at what they've done for me. It will bring this epiphany in the other person. It never, never, never works. Until you erect a boundary. And sometimes when you erect a boundary, after you've been in that kind of in conjunction relationship, it can result in regaining the kind of respect or give and take that you want. But usually within conjunctions, we have to recognize that it's a sunk cost. We're usually not going to recover or regain what we invested or what we gave. And so we have to cut our losses. But it's that false idea that if I keep asking, if I keep sacrificing, if I keep giving, if I keep loving this person, if I keep waiting, it will pay off. It won't. You have to regain your own self-respect and your own status and your own everything. You have to stop depleting yourself by laying it all out there and enriching somebody else, and then them taking that and just applying it forward to another person. With a couple others, the square. The square is where we are more actively involved in withholding. So we have the overgiving with the inconjunction, the other person totally withholding, being totally unavailable. It causes us to give more, sacrifice more. But with the square, it is more of a consistent withholding and being withheld from. See, we do all the feeding, and the other person does all the eating with the inconjunction. But both of us are starved. Both of us are experiencing a leaner input and output, a leaner give and take with the square. And we are a miser on some level. We're kind of Scroogey when it comes to giving and receiving love, because we are afraid of loss, vulnerability, truly having our need for love and devotion and beauty fulfilled. We're afraid of it. Things have been taken from us. We were raised in situations or conditions where we were not appreciated. We were not given to properly. So there's an expectation of just so much. Now, because if it's too much, if I get everything, what am I going to do with that? I don't have the capacity to win the lottery. That scares the shit out of me. And so we can invite conditions into our life, like I'm, praying for more. I'm praying for fulfillment. I'm praying for the love, the abundance that I want. But when it shows up for me, I'm like, well, thank you, Divine Creator, but no thank you. They'll just casually move over here and find something that's a little less scary in terms of exposing myself to more. So I'm only used to this big of a plate. Now I want a much bigger plate, but I'm so afraid of receiving it. I don't have the capacity to handle all that love, all that abundance. So it's easier for me to go to a restaurant that just has smaller plates. But thank you. So with the conjunction, that's different. Somebody just asked about the conjunction. Conjunctions are very covert. We don't know what we are, what we do with a conjunction, because you have to look at any conjunction. It's like a wall that's directly confronted in front of us, and we just peek out over the top. And it's right here. See? With a square, we have more of a consciously erected wall, an idea of how we are controlling something, how we are both wanting something and having a problem with the capacity to align with that on one level. See, we're one way here, but we're also over here, so we're misaligned. With any hard aspects, there's a misalignment within ourselves between two functions, two needs, two universal, or more, depending on what's an aspect, universal human needs, ways of being. So with conjunctions, we are wholly unconscious. It's the biggest blind spot that we can have, any conjunction. Because we have that erection of the wall, but it's so close to us, and we're just up looking around until we become extremely self-aware and realize what we're doing. We don't have the opportunity to break through. See, with oppositions and squares, we have this more consistent external conflict. But conjunctions are so covert. See, with oppositions, people say things about us and think things about us openly. And we say things about others and think things about others openly. But with conjunctions, this is what everybody's like, we all know that they're like that, but you know what? They don't know, and they're never going to know. With our conjunctions, we can be interpreted, especially if we carry them into later life, we can be interpreted as a lost cause. Because a conjunction is going to be a primary blind spot. We have a conscious factor linked with the most deeply unconscious factor about ourselves. So the conscious factor is Venus, what I want, and Saturn is more unconscious factor here. You know, I want all the best things. And we don't know that we have a direct wall in front of that. So we have to be willing to look at what do we do to people with conjunctions? What do we do to people? Because people will often not get directly in our face. They talk about us behind our back. They talk about us to each other. They give us the side eye because they aren't getting directly in our face about something that we're doing, but everybody knows except us. And so our shadow side is deeply hidden with a conjunction, deeply, deeply hidden. It's obvious with an opposition. We see it in other people all the time, and we fucking hate it. We want to stamp it out. Because with opposition, see, we show up with a story about others, and we act in such a way that causes that story to be proven through others' reactions to us in real life, because we have to keep that story going because it's a primary source of information about ourselves and others. It's a source of building the ego. So we show up with these stories with oppositions, and it's extremely important that other people react to us in such a way that proves it, or else our ego will start to disintegrate. If the mirror does not do what we expect it to do, if we're not getting that same reaction, it causes us to take another look. It is very dangerous to the ego to not get the reaction that you are used to. Because it calls into question all of these stories that we show up with. And we might start looking at the source of that story. Is it others? Really? Or does it actually come from us? See, with a conjunction, we do not know we have a story. It is just about us. It's not about others. The story's about us. The stories that we show up with oppositions are about others. So we look at a wall and it's in front of our opponent with an opposition. We look out, we have some distance. See, you have to look at, there's only one thing. There's only one person. There's only you. That's a whole nother lesson. But get a little bit abstract here when it comes to trying to explain this. The observer and the observed is the same thing. The conjunction is, we'll just say that, God, it's so abstract. It takes a long time to really get down to this. I am going to start teaching more non-duality this year. And we'll get into more of these concepts here. But we have the observer as the conjunction, me. And then we have the observed. The opposition. And so we have the wall here in front of us with the conjunction. We're looking out towards the other. We don't see the wall. But when we're on the other side, we're at the opposition, we're looking at the conjunction. And we see the wall in front of that person out there. With the square, we have a wall that's going on either side. So we're aware, more aware with the square, of the conflict. Because we have this developing story. The story about our own development. That's about being blocked by self and other. Another way to understand how these hard aspects develop is by looking at the kind of thinking. Any kind of thinking that's associated with the squares, like with the conjunctions. I have the power. It's with the source. Back at the conjunction. We're looking at a square. They're like, you are trying to take my power. With an opposition, we look at it like, you have the power and I want it back. So with the conjunction of Venus and Saturn, there is a keeping out of what isn't deserving. And you have to look at this as this can be a very successful blending of these two. It can also be a blending that hedges out or walls out what is most important. So the sign that this conjunction comes into is going to be very telling about how successful this conjunction is. If you guys want to know more about this stuff, I teach all year long. I should just open with this. I never advertise anything I do because I just forget, and I'm not I don't think about it. But I do teach all year. We're meeting today at 10 a.m. for Psychopath Sunday, where we examine charts of questionable figures. We meet for group therapy on Tuesdays, and Mark, the Emperor, is going to start joining me on Tuesdays. He is a licensed psychotherapist, and so we'll have this beautiful fusion here of psychotherapist and astrologer, and that's also something, if you're interested, join that. And then we meet for transits course every Wednesday at 10 a.m. And then we have apprentice hour for my apprentices, which I don't think I'm gonna, maybe I'll take on more this year. I don't know. It'll have to be a really good fit. But I teach about this stuff all the time, but I'm going to start showing up more and more to talk more in depth about some of these things that I typically reserve for over there. Yes, Joy, I do synastry chart reads. Look at, I have my schedule open. I don't know if you can get in with me this week, but definitely next week. Natal, synastry, transits. You can book all those things right now. But with the conjunction of Venus and Saturn, we have to be willing to let our heart wall down. It's gonna have to be our own willingness. It's gonna have to be us deciding of our own free will, because we've seen how we are. We've developed a self-awareness. We've seen that we're not allowing in what fills our heart. We may have a beautiful house. We may have a mate that has all this title. We may have an amazing car. We may have the best stuff. We may be beautiful. We might be charming. We might be educated. But we don't feel loved. And we don't feel that we're with the person that we totally love. Because we're lacking that total self-love. That has to be there first. It has to be there first. We have to respect that the heart wants what the heart wants. And give ourselves permission to love what is tender and true and available, and to love what wants us. We don't want to love what wants us with Venus Saturn aspects. We're not used to it. We're not used to being seen. We're not used to being appreciated. Above all, we are not used to being appreciated. And we're not used to totally appreciating others either. Because that might lead to a total falling in love. So when you totally and completely fall in love with yourself, with Venus Saturn aspects. You totally fall in love with yourself and you put yourself first. And you do not settle for what's transactional, what's material. It checks off the boxes. But it does not fit into our heart space. No, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. When you think and love and know yourself as good enough, that's the standard. It's the standard that should have always been met. Just because it wasn't in the past doesn't mean it can't be met now. Okay, guys, so that's what I have time for. I would love to stay more. This is a fabulous conversation. Let's talk again tomorrow about a different aspect. Why don't you leave me some comments below and tell me which aspect you would like to focus on, which planetary relationship you want to focus on tomorrow. We'll pop in and we'll have another chat about that. All right, I appreciate you guys.